When I say I'm living a fearless life, it doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It just means that when you feel that fear or the anxiety of like not being able to be fit strong enough or competent enough, you use that as a motivational factor to level yourself up.
Welcome to the Mindfulness in Motion podcast, the show that helps you move beyond checklists of life and into a world of joy, meaning, and discovery. I'm your host, Cori Myka, and I am thrilled to have our listeners here with us today. I'm also excited to have Coach Darryl Johnson with us. He is a fearless living and mindful fitness coach and the author of Fearless Vitality. Darryl helps people use movement through self-defense, fitness, and mindset to transform fear into power. Today, we're going to explore how moving the body helps calm the mind and how the lessons you learn on the mat or the gym, we usually do it in the swimming pool, but how the mat in the gym can also translate into your everyday life of courage. So we will dive on in. Welcome, Darryl. I love your courageous picture that you have behind you there.
That's not actually me, but I think it's a great activity. But yes. So thanks for having me out, and looking forward to having a conversation and maybe dropping some value for folks who maybe will, get a useful nugget or two out of what we talk about.
Excellent. Perfect. Well, let's just start with, your background in terms of how your approach to self-defense and fitness and how you integrate it going beyond just the physical training, how you started with the idea of mindfulness and movement.
Well, I started martial arts in late 80s, and I took to martial arts because as a kid, I was overweight and I wasn't athletic, and I did not enjoy team sports because, I was a kid that wouldn't catch the ball or didn't make a play, and then I had the whole team come down me. So when I got into martial arts, a couple things happened that were unique in my experience. One is I found an activity where my energy and my effort was rewarded by skills that I received. So I didn't have to rely on anybody else. I wasn't holding anybody else up. But the more important thing was, for the first time in my life, I was in a positive peer environment. So even though we have rock stars who are amazing athletes and people who are struggling, everybody was on your team. So although it's an individual activity, it's really a team sport. And this is a truism with any kind of discipline where you are creating a self-improvement process for yourself, but yet you have a support team around you. Whereas in your typical team sports, you have some of that, but then you're just part of the machine, which is great. There's a lot of value to that. But I really found myself drawn to this individual activity of self-improvement, but yet I had a support team, and now I get to be that support team for others along the pathway.
Nice. I love it. When you look back at that team, because it's obvious that whoever was leading that was leading from that way. Have you looked back to see what their thinking process, what their belief is that they brought in to have that collaborative piece as part of it?
Well, I don't think they ever put that kind of thought into it, which, because this kind of intrinsically happens. But the value is that when you're interested in improving yourself and improving your skills and your awareness, it makes it natural to want to share that knowledge. So, and I find this with most instructors of any discipline, is that you start seeing it almost like a ministry, and you want to have a congregation. So you're like, I have this amazing thing I want to share, and I want to share it with people who are of a like-minded, a consensus of moving themselves forward. So you start to gather like-minded people around you. And you can do that in a positive or in a negative fashion. And I was lucky enough to find a very positive environment for myself. I've seen it used negatively as well. But I think the mindset was this: you have this gift that was a gift to you. You felt power and you felt stronger. Now you feel almost compelled to share it with others.
Now, I love that people having a gift and the being compelled to share it with others. And I'll just sort of know, I don't know that that's necessarily natural, because there are people who have a gift and they want to hoard it, right? Or they want to keep it for themselves, or they want to use it to have the competitive edge, right? I'm not going to tell my gift to somebody else because I want to keep a competitive edge. And I think I just want to reflect on that, or let's think about that a little bit, because these things that are mindfulness, that is really in motion and that we play into our life, does come in these little sentences that we think, well, isn't this just the way it is? But it's actually somebody's chosen that over time for themselves.
Right. So the distinction I make is people who are teaching, that's the support team I'm referring to. What I found is oftentimes the very best athletes, whether in martial arts or other things, often don't make the best instructors, because we just mentioned that focus is completely on how to develop the limits to their ability to be the best competitor possible. And if that is your primary drive, oftentimes you don't develop the skills to share it as well. So in my world, I've trained with world champions in various disciplines. And I would say the very best instructors I've ever had were people who are probably a little above average in ability, but yet they felt that they wanted to share with others. The hyper competitive, now that might change when they retire from their sport, but while they're in that zone and they're like, I'm going to be the best XYZ ever, I'm going to make sure I get the gold medal in the world championship. It's very difficult to have that kind of drive and be an effective instructor or an effective teacher.
Yeah, okay, that's a really good distinction, because I think most people move into the world of doing activities, be it martial arts or swimming or learning a instrument or whatever it is that you might be learning as an adult and getting into. By and large, their goal isn't to become the top of it. Some people, but really their own self-improvement. But if the model is going towards making people gold medal winners, and that's not really their goal, it might change the way somebody approaches it or how somebody teaches it or how the mindset people are asking to go into it. But if we're in this mindset of, no, it's about my self-improvement, then that has this generosity of sharing, and collaborative work.
I definitely would agree with you on that. And, and I've been in academies and places where their goal was to create champions. That is their mission. And so you develop a like-minded mentality. And if you're someone who's, I just want to be in better shape and protect myself, you're not going to jive with that very well. And you're going to feel a little out of place. So, if you are the hyper-competitive individual and you're going to be the world champion, then you would gravitate towards a facility or a group where that is their mission, if you will. But in martial arts, the vast majority of people that do it because they want to improve themselves. And same thing with fitness. Most people are not going to be a bodybuilder. They're not going to do a CrossFit competition. They just want to, look better in a swimsuit and make sure their clothes fit right and they want to be healthy. So for those folks, that hyper-competitive kind of vibe would be really off-putting. And they would, and I've seen that mismatch where I've been to gyms, physical fitness or martial arts. They are that hyper-competitive. And you have people who are like, well, I want to be part of the group, but I just don't have that desire to push myself to the bleeding edge of performance because that's not what I'm here for. And that just creates a dichotomy within themselves. So it's important when this is for anybody who's looking for any activity that you seek out a facility or a training group or a coach who's like, all right, I'm here to help you be a better version of yourself versus I'm here to help you win gold medals, or I'm here just to, make you feel good and tell you lies because there's all the spectrum in there. So your point is very valid that you have to line up your goals and abilities with what your training group is also working towards.
Yeah, I love that. I keep thinking as you're talking about it, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing that weightlifting 3 and 4 times a week so that I don't get that osteoporosis. That's my goal. Yeah. I'm like, I could care less how buff or whatever. I'm like, I just don't want my bones to break as I get older and I want them to be strong and healthy. So, and I don't want to get hurt while I'm doing that because that would be counter to having strong bones as I age.
Right. You don't need to pay to get hurt because you can do that for free.
Okay, I love it. Nice. Well, tell me about how you use working with people in fitness or in martial arts and how you help bridge what they're learning and what they're doing there on the mat into their lives to be able to have more courage and how you see that showing up in other areas of their life.
Well, when I first started teaching martial arts, I was an instructor. I thought everybody wanted to be the awesome self-defense practitioner. And when I started getting into fitness, I thought everybody wanted to be ripped and jacked because, that's kind of what I wanted to do as a young man. But I've been doing this long enough now where I still teach classes and I do that stuff in seminars. But really now I'm trying to reach people who are, they're going through life, they're grown-ups, they're adults, they have a job and they feel like they're just missing out on something. They don't feel confident. They don't feel like they've really come anywhere close to potential. So, and I found this because I started doing a lot more workshops and entrepreneur seminars with people who were not in fitness and martial arts. So I would meet these people and they were sharp and they had abilities, but they just had this lack of presence. I'm like, you know what? I know what I do through martial arts and fitness. We work on challenging your personal abilities, take it to the next level. I know that these things really build up the mindset of not being as fearful of, strangers or as fearful, like you talk about health issues. And if I can build them up that way, the fear that they have in life that keeps them from doing things would be diminished. So when I say I'm living a fearless life, it doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It just means that when you feel that fear or the anxiety of not being able to be fit strong enough or competent enough, you use that as a motivational factor to level yourself up. We talked a bit about before, most people I work with, they aren't going to be bodybuilders or kickboxing champions. They just want to improve themselves. But I use those modalities of, physical development with the mindset of challenging yourself in putting yourself into uncomfortable situations intentionally. The word isn't really desensitized, but you learn a tolerance for it that makes it almost exciting. And so that fear that you would have felt before, now that exhilaration, if you will, now it becomes a fuel. Like I can move to the next level now. Now I'm excited to do something different as opposed to being before, you'd be anxious and overwhelmed by that. And you wouldn't take any action at all, which is the state most people do. That's what most people do. They take, when people talk about adrenaline and threats, people have fight or flight, but most people just freeze. They take zero action and they just kind of hope for the best. And hope is one of the most powerful emotions and feelings in human nature, but it's really not a good plan. So a good plan is better than hoping. So what I do with martial arts and fitness and mindset is I intentionally take people they aren't where they want to be physically or mentally or both. And I just challenge them a little at a time and get them to the point where that anxiety and that fear that they would feel before, now it's something that propels them forward rather than freezes them in place.
Yeah, I think one of the models that we teach is the hardest thing that we do is to go from 0 to 1, right?
100%.
From nothing to something.
Exactly.
And we always think, well, if I want to do something, I need to go from 0 to 100, or I need to make, 100% change in what I'm doing. And that's a very effective way to flood us with overwhelm. So we stay at 0.
Yeah. I even put a program together where I have, I use fear and I have 4 steps. It's fortify, engage, adapt, and rise. And the first step is, you're going to take this challenging task, whether it's applying for a new job. All right, what are the basic skills I need? The fundamentals. Let's focus on that. Like you say, from 0 to 1. Before you worry about salaries and hours and vacation time, let's make sure that we have the skill set that is necessary for the job. And then you could take action, which is the engage step, and then get feedback and adapt. And then, once you have level 1 done, okay, now let's think about level 2, or let's think about that promotion. So, but yeah, that 0 to 1, that's a great analogy because most people, they look at the end and go, oh, it's so far away, that's so hard. And they stop thinking about that first step. So one of my favorite quotes ever is the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And I think everybody's heard that. Everybody knows that, but they don't really internalize that. So that's exactly what we try to do is like, let's start in the beginning. What's the very minimum? So I have another acronym. It's called the minimum action step to achieve results. What is the smallest action, the littlest thing you can do to get you moving towards this goal? 0 to 1, as you would say. That's a super important point. And for some reason, I think our society is so fast paced. We have so much information. People, they just look at the end and go, it's just too hard, or I can't do it. Or they underestimate what they could do if they just did that first step. Just take that first little action. It could be something as small as like, I'm going to look up what I have to do for this thing. I'm going to learn how to do rock climbing. What's the first thing I need to do? Take that first step.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I tell people all the time when they listen to one of our YouTube videos, right? I'm like, make sure you're acknowledging to yourself that's a step. Now, it can't be the only step, right? But listening to this podcast to have your mind think about something in a new way. And I think it's really important then to acknowledge, okay, that is a step on the journey. What's the next step? At some point you fill up with, okay, now I've just listened to too many videos and whatever, like I need to take another action step. But I think when we discredit even those early small steps, like you said, of investigating, picking up the phone or you're Googling to investigate, there's these 5 gyms around me that I could go inquire about martial arts and to see, are they trying to produce gold medal winners or are they helping people with their fitness, right? Making that inquiry. You don't even have to sign up for the class, but just going and making that inquiry is a step.
Just take some kind of action. Again, small is fine because it's moving. So, as you walk down life, your time is going to go by. You can have to use that time moving towards your goal, a time moving away from your goal. But time is going to go by whether you do take action or not. So you might as well take even small actions. And I think, especially when you have a full life, if you're a spouse and you have kids and jobs, small action steps might be the only steps that make sense. And that's fine. But just take those steps rather than being frozen by overwhelm and anxiety. Just, look at the first step, like watching a video, Googling what you got to do, maybe talking to somebody that's doing what you want to do, just getting that information. All right, now I have a little bit more of an idea what needs to happen next.
Yeah, I can be curious and look into it. We keep talking about all these steps. I have my son, it's a little side story, but my son, when he was 18 years old, going to college during COVID, and found out that was a terrible idea. So did not go back, and he decided that he hiked instead. He hiked 3,000 miles from the Mexico border to the Canada border. And his father and grandparents and I all have been telling him how really pretty amazing it is. And he always comes back with, Mom, all I did was get up and walk each day. I just had to do one step in front of the other.
Yeah.
for 3,000 miles.
Mhm.
But I mean, what a grounding thing he has in himself that he literally does have this lesson of, yeah, I just had to get up and take one step in front of the other. And magically, sort of magically, he made it 3,000 miles on his own, which is amazing.
That's awesome. It illustrates exactly that concept. But now, if you'd said to someone, hey, buddy, you're going to go with me, we're going to hike 3,000 miles, you're like, what? That's crazy. I would never do that. That's not, you would immediately go to the end result and say, it's too much, can't do it. But by taking that, I just got up and I put my shoes on. All right. Then I, got my water bottle. Then I went out the door, each little step, and then just one foot in front of the other. So that's a really good analogy for what we're talking about. And it's an amazing thing for a young man to accomplish. And that's really, really cool. Like, how do I top this? Or how do I not feel like it's all downhill from here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those are things that go through your head. In my business, but sometimes when people get a black belt, which, like, oh, I got a black belt. And they're like, they're just done. Like, all right, cool, I got there. And they don't realize that there's a whole world ahead of that. But they've made it such a big deal in their mind, this target, that now that they've achieved it, that like it's almost like disappointing. The thing is, if you learn to love the journey more than the destination, you won't have that problem. But as humans, we get goal oriented. Like, I need to get to that top. I need to do this thing. I need to do, learn how to do this XYZ thing. So that's a valuable mindset lesson for him at a young age. But now, what did you enjoy about the journey? How did you grow along that pathway and use that as your fuel? It's like, all right, well, I want that same sensation. I don't need to hit a bigger milestone, but I want to feel that exhilaration of like, man, I just passed 1,000 miles or whatever it is, the growth of the journey. If you fall in love with that, then everything in life will be easier.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about changes you maybe have seen in clients that you've worked with who have used their fear as fuel. And I think that's one of the terms that you use, to use your fear as fuel. What sort of changes have you seen in them from
Well, this
doing
is
that?
really interesting. So I'll tell you, in 35 years, I have tons of stories, but I've one that I really found. There's two that one is that this is probably, I wouldn't say 20, yeah, about 20 years ago now. So I had a client, a student of mine in Krav Maga, and gentle giant, probably 6'6", overweight, and just a nice guy, but he's a big guy. So people would, sometimes challenge him. And he was training my program. He ended up losing like 75 pounds. It was great. But he comes to me one day. I'm in the office at my academy at the time, and he knocks on the door, and I'm like, yeah, what's that? He goes, hey, Coach, can I talk to you for a second? I'm like, of course. He goes, yeah, I want to tell you what happened. He goes, this Chargers were here in San Diego. He's like, yeah, I was at the Chargers game. I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, this guy was like, was really, giving me a hard time, and he kept pushing me. I'm like, and he goes, well, he pushed me really hard, and I grabbed him, and I hit him with like 3 knee strikes in the belly, and he dropped to the ground, and then I left, and he was torn between being excited and being concerned that I might judge him harshly because he's a big dude. I said, did you keep hitting him? I mean, with the guy, the threat was stopped, and this story was exciting because this was so out of character, because he was the kind of guy that would let people push him around. He was a big guy, but he was super quiet and soft. So he ended up, I'm sure he said, yeah, I was really nervous. The adrenaline was going through me, but he used that and kept us cool, stood his ground. He was with some friends too. So he's concerned about, I think I had a female friend with him, about something maybe happening to this other person. But he ended up using that adrenaline, and I'm going to, just do what I need to do, take care of business, but I'm not going to let you hurt me or my friends. So that story really stands out. And, it was just so funny because he comes to me almost as if he's worried about me judging him harshly for defending himself. I see that a lot with kids too. When parents will tell me like, well, my son he doesn't want to fight with this kid that's hitting him on the playground because he doesn't want the instructor, to get mad at him. So I have to explain, it's like, hey, as long as you're defending yourself, as long as you're not starting problems, I want you to stand your ground, because, society always has pecking orders and this hierarchies that you can't wish them away. You can't legislate them away. So I don't obviously want any of my students to be bullies or to be, antagonists, but I definitely want people to understand that you have a personal space and you have personal well-being that you are absolutely, need to defend if possible. So that's the fuel, because when people get approached, when they get challenged, if you will, that's adrenaline. You get that fear, like, what if I get hurt? What if I get in trouble? What if, what if? But when you have that confidence, that we call it command presence, like, hey, man, leave me alone. Let's not start any problems. That right there solves a lot of challenges just by having that confidence and the presence. And this is kind of where the mindset comes in. So yeah, you can have the physical skills, you can be in great shape, but if you don't have the mindset to then have that shield up, it can be problematic as well.
Yeah, for sure. I actually just went through a training and it was all about de-escalation, right? Is how do you help people de-escalate? And it, of course, always starts with yourself, is noticing, am I on the defensive and have my adrenaline system and I'm letting myself be flooded by fear? How do I come back in to center myself, taking a breath that I don't have to allow somebody to hurt me,
No.
But I also, yeah, using my own calming of my own systems and my confidence in myself to ground myself, then I can bring some, calm curiosity into the other person, kind of figure out what the best approach is to take care of myself. And then, which would ultimately end up taking care of the other person too, by, as you say, defending yourself, that it isn't
Yeah.
necessarily about coming out with a physical force, but it's
No.
coming out with
Yeah.
that energetic way of being first makes a huge change in any scenario.
Yeah, one of the misconceptions, I teach Krav Maga is what I teach mostly now, and it's very aggressive and violent in physical response. So people assume that's our go-to. That's the end of the road. That's like, I tried to avoid, I've tried to de-escalate. The person is insisting on putting hands on me or my loved ones. It is not our first course of action because that causes, that guarantees danger and that you don't know how it's going to escalate from there. So even though the stuff I teach, I teach jujitsu and Krav Maga and Muay Thai, and if you just look at the physical side, it's so aggressive and violent, and it is, but that is the end game only if necessary. And honestly, it's almost never necessary in everyday life. It's very, very rare that it's required that you go hands on and cause damage to a human being. It happens. And sometimes it's forced upon you through no fault of your own, but it's very rarely the inevitable result. And so when we do our training, we talk about distancing and de-escalation. And then it goes back to that command presence. If you have the posture and you have the voice control and you have the ability to control that fear, that adrenaline, you're going to solve a lot of problems before they ever start. Because one of the things that I found that I've done a lot of research in as our self-defense instructor is predatory behaviors, the psychology of a human predator, which is similar to the psychology of an animal predator. So your demeanor, your posture, your eye contact. These are all things that solve problems in self-defense that you don't have to then resort to physical stuff. Because if someone has chosen you as a victim, they see something that they feel they can take advantage of. Now, maybe there's 5 of them and 1 of you, but they like, this person doesn't seem like the kind of person that's going to give me a lot of trouble. So when you have the mindset and the body language and the voice control along with the physical skills, life just gets simpler. So the more training you have, the less likely you are to ever use it.
I love it.
And that's the truism that, so I've had students that come to me like, yeah, I've been jumped a few times. And as they train, they don't have to fight anymore because, again, their confidence and their presence puts them out of the category of being a victim. So that is one of the most powerful ways that mindset comes into play. And plus, you look in shape. You look like you could fight. You look like you could lift something. You look like you could push someone away. You look like you could run. And this is what we do with law enforcement, too. The better trained law enforcement is, the less likely they are to resort to lethal force. And that's just the way it goes. If they have confidence in their skills before lethal force, they're less likely to use lethal force. So it goes back to that command presence. It goes back to your confidence, your controlling of fear. Everybody feels fear. The biggest, baddest dude on the planet will feel some anxiety and fear if somebody challenges him. But if you learn how to use that in a positive way, like, all right, I have this adrenaline dump, so now I know I'm stronger and I feel less pain, but I don't want to, go reptilian brain and just thrash around. I want to keep my cerebral, brain in play. Now you have some real power because now it's a force that can be used for good. And if it's force to use for defense, as opposed to just going, animal brain and then just, because who knows what happens? Maybe you win, maybe you lose, maybe you both lose, who knows? So we don't want to go there if we can avoid it.
This very much reminds me of, we are working with students in the water, teaching adults how to swim. The assumption is I have to work really hard and do all these physical activities. And the reality is if they spend more of their time being calm and still in the water, that actually takes care of most of the problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We don't have to be rushing to get to the other side and be exhausted and out of breath. And they're not very effective in their movements. And that's really how drowning occurs versus the folks who can just be like, nope, let me just use the tool of the water and bring some of that presence in. And then they realize, oh, I don't have to fight my way through the water. I get to work with it.
Yeah,
and it
that's
makes
a great
all
analogy.
the difference in the world.
Yeah. It's very similar. If you don't panic and because, if you get in the water and you're not used to it, oh my gosh, oh, I've got water in my nose, I can't breathe. And there's that panic. But if you all right, the adrenaline's hitting me, I'm going to, like I say, calm down. All right, now I can use the skills that I picked up. Maybe it's just a dog paddle. I can swim, but I'm not a great swimmer. But it's like the same idea. If you don't panic, that when that fear hits you, if you let it become something that you can use in favor of a great outcome instead of just hoping for the best, letting it consume you, you're going to be so much farther ahead. I think one of the things as human beings, we have the unique ability to do that. We have the intellectual capacity to okay, I don't have to go, animal brain and just freak out, because most animals can swim naturally, but a human being can not only can swim naturally, but now we can learn to swim efficiently and be way better than the average other individual, which is amazing. Because you don't have like dogs having swimming competitions.
Right.
They can all swim, but they don't care about being fastest. They just care about like, well, I don't want to drown. So we have
I love it. That goes back to the beginning of our conversation of looking at what's the gym you're going to. Is it about improving
yes.
yourself, or is it about being the fastest? If you're the fastest, so what? What does that mean in your life? If you don't feel good or you don't have that self-confidence and desire to give back and share and all these other benefits of being in a self-improvement realm,
Yes.
you get to choose which path you're going on. Darryl, this has been really great talking to you. Tell me where we can find you if people are interested in your book and working with you. Where can folks hook up?
Well, CoachDarrylJohnson.com is my site that, it's up in context there. LivingAFearlessLife.com is where I do my coaching program. And my book, I swear it's the final edit.
Ah,
It's like, I think it's done. Like, I'm going to tweak this over. I swear to God, by this week, this will be the final edit. And I'll have that up. LivingFearless.com. I'll have a place for the book on my website too. And the book is designed mostly for guys, for men that are 35 to 55. That's the demographic that I do the most work with. I work with women and kids and, old people too. But this book was prompted by when I went to these entrepreneur and business seminars. I see these guys who they're able to do stuff because they have a good career, but they just don't have that. I call it the mojo. The physical fitness isn't there. Their command presence isn't there. They don't know how to defend themselves if they attack. So that's the target for that book. But, I just want people to really live a fearless life. And when they have that fear and anxiety, it turns into fuel. So they are able to take positive action and not let it consume them. Whether it's fitness, getting into your swimsuit, defending yourself against attacker, climbing a flight of stairs, whatever the case might be. So livingafearlesslife.com, CoachDarrylJohnson.com would be easy to get to.
great. And of course, that'll be in the show notes. Darryl, thank you so much. This is really interesting and fun new look at our mindfulness in motion.
Well, Cori, thanks so much for having me, and I hope you have a fantastic day.
Thanks. Bye.